Beautiful fall day up here in Portland. Hope it's nice where y'all are. Um, Today we're going to talk about a phrase that came up in the Dharma talk last week that was given by River Shannon. And it was such an inspiring talk. And she had mentioned the phrase Menmitsu no Kafu. Am I saying that right? And we went back to the drawing board. And so each Steve and Kirk and myself are going to speak for a few minutes on it, and then we'll have Zazen, and then we'll talk more about it because there's probably people here that actually know more than we do. So Steve, would you like to go first, or?
I would be happy to. So good afternoon. It's wonderful to see everybody. Thank you for being here. As uh, Cynthia said last week, we were learning more about Menmitsu no Kafu. And in order to begin an exploration, I translated it from the Chinese, from the kanji. And the translation I came up with was meticulous disposition of mind and action. Meticulous disposition of mind and action. And that brought up for me another phrase. And the second phrase was from the Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage. And I translated it from the Chinese, something I'm much more comfortable with. Ji zhi jia liao yi wei zui. And the translation I came up with is the foundation is firm and strong. The foundation is firm and strong. So how do we begin to understand these two phrases? Why did I put them together? Well, one translation of the two phrases together is simply the meticulous position of mind and action leads to a strong foundation. Our practice leads to a strong foundation. Foundation of what? I think the unspoken word is mind. In Chinese and in Japanese both, heart-mind. These two phrases are teaching us that the dedicated and meticulous practice of Zazen will give us a strong mental outlook, able to see the world as it is, grasping what is happening with the firm foundation of practice and an understanding of the world around us. I think this helps inform Shunryu Suzuki Roshi's phrase from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, things as it is. Whew. Well, that was hopeful. With mere hours before the election, what is one to do? I cannot claim to be this positive, even a majority of the time over the last 4 weeks. These two phrases are clear. We practice training our mind, understand our actions, and build a strong foundation in our life. The author, Ben Connolly, states, without this kind of training, the body and mind tend to be swept up in a reactive froth of emotion and thought, something I'm now very familiar with. This is certainly a challenge for me the last few weeks as I read the New York Times, or try to avoid it. Our reality is our mind. A great example of this is a conversation between Bodhidharma, the first Zen patriarch in China, and his student, Hui Ke. So this is a koan. Dadzu Hui Ke cries, "My mind is not pacified. Master, pacify my mind. Bodhidharma promises, if you bring me the mind, I will pacify it. Dazu Huike complains, no matter how much I search my mind, I cannot grab a hold of it to bring it out for you. And Bodhidharma says, pacified already. End quote. Job is done. My own experience in the election season is a case in point. When not focused on my practice, in Zazen, my own emotions and thought patterns are whipped up by the detritus of an election season, replete with racism, misogyny, homophobia, and hate. I cannot change what is being said, the polling statistics, or my own fears of what could happen in an unknown future. I can sit Zazen, explore the Dharma, and practice together with Sangha. Our lives include dukkha, suffering, not just now, not just because of the current political and societal turmoil. This is always true, has always been true. Buddha spoke directly to our suffering in the Samyutta Nikaya. Those ascetics and Brahmins, monk, who do not understand as it really is, this is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. Those ascetics and Brahmins, monk, who do understand as it really is, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. They do not delight in the volitional formations that lead to birth, aging, and death, end quote. We hold in our grasp the way to address our suffering, our sense of dread and fear of loss. Through our practice, we carefully cultivate our mind, supported disposition of openness and peace. This foundation, supported by practice, leads to peace of mind, a deeper understanding of what is going on around us. I don't mean to sound like Pollyanna. I am certainly clear that we will face hard times, regardless of who wins the election. What happens in the next week, what happens in the next few minutes. We cannot change the world we live in. We can change our mind, how we see the world, how we interact in the world. This is also clear from the teachings of Vasubandhu, an Indian Buddhist from the 4th or 5th centuries of the Common Era. Quote, everything conceived as self or other occurs in the transformation of consciousness, end quote. This is the essence of Yogacara. This then is our task, to sit Zazen, calm our mind, understand the true source of dukkha and the path from dukkha through the meticulous disposition of mind and action, leading to a firm and strong foundation. The 12th century nun Zhengjue, Upright Awareness, wrote, spring morning on the lake, the wind emerges with rain. Worldly matters are like flowers that fall only to bloom again. I retire to contemplate behind closed doors, a place of true joy, while the floating clouds come and go the whole day long, end quote. Perhaps this then is our task, to contemplate in a place of true joy, a place found through our practice, meticulous action leading to a strong foundation. Thank you.
Would you like to chime in? Mm-hmm.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. Okay, let's see. What I want to say, yeah, I'm not sure how much, how much people know about the history of Zen Buddhism, but I want to start by saying that Eihei Dogen he founded the Soto School of Zen. That's the path that we have, and the practice that he emphasized was this practice of just sitting. So, and that as just sitting as a path to enlightenment. And the teaching is to be present in each moment, and then that's just a sincere practice. I mean, for Dogen, he taught that, everyday activity, just doing something very ordinary, just like washing the dishes, that would be an opportunity for practice. So he even wrote, his masterwork is called the Shobo Genzo, and it's the collection of Dogen's fascicles and their teachings, and in one of them there's a very famous one called Instructions to the Cook, and then he's emphasizing that even the very most routine task, you could do that with some sort of very full presence and some attention, and that if you did that, then that would be an expression of the Buddhist teaching. Like for Dogen, washing the dishes isn't just something to get through or dismiss, or so you can get back on Twitter. Instead, he's teaching that you should surrender, like, to each activity with some sort of wholeheartedness, and that single-minded attention would be the way forward. Like each moment, precious and complete in itself. So whatever you're doing, if it's cooking or cleaning or washing the dishes, I mean, Zen Buddhism really emphasizes ordinary mind and ordinary activities. Like Dogen's way is to embody those activities with some completeness. So, when you wash the dishes, for example, you could focus on the temperature of the water and how soapy it feels, and the movement of your hands and caring for each dish, and then without letting your mind wander or treating it as something, as an activity you're just pushing through. Like if you're doing the dishes so you can just have a cup of tea, then you've already lost your way. So you're doing the dishes because that's the practice. Also, one of Dogen's big ideas is, or main teachings would be on uji, which is also known as being time, where each moment contains every other moment. So his thing is that practicing being very attentive in even a very small everyday task is a kind of form of enlightenment in itself, and also a path to enlightenment. So washing dishes in that way becomes like a complete practice, like an expression of Zen Buddhism in itself. So whether you're sitting or walking or standing or lying down or eating or listening or folding your clothes at night or putting your fork on the plate or opening the door, we do it with a very specific kind of attention called Menmitsu no Kafu. In Japanese, it's careful, considerate, it's very intimate, it's warm-hearted, it's got this very continuous attention to detail. So sort of soft, sort of subtle, but that's in practice. It's a little bit like this Buddhist word called sati. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Sati has this kind of this quality of remembering or bearing in mind, meaning that with sati you're really paying attention to the quality of your mind while you're doing something, whereas with Menmitsu you're emphasizing more on your actions in the world. So, and the idea there is to try to maintain some sort of continuous thread of awareness in your activities. It's like tea ceremony, where, tea ceremony can look ridiculous, and you're just moving things around and placing them very deliberately. It's comical on some level, but actually that's our practice. So a lot of Zen monastic training is about trying to embody this feeling of Menmitsu, like when you go around your daily life, like you're putting on your robe, or you're sweeping the sidewalk, or you're putting your oryoki bowls together. So that is the practice, just paying attention. Now, I read a article by Sharon Salzberg where she told a story that describes this kind of quality of mind that I'm speaking about. So, and these are her words. She was on a retreat, a Vipassana retreat, and she went to an interview with a meditation teacher, and here's what she wrote. I diligently wrote down brief notes after each period of sitting and walking meditation. I wanted to describe my experiences clearly in our interviews. When I began relating my experiences, the teacher said, "Never mind that. Tell me everything you notice when you put on your shoes." I hadn't really paid attention to putting on my shoes. He told me to try again, and that was the end of the interview. The next day I went to my interview ready to report on sitting meditation, walking meditation, and my experience while putting on my shoes. The teacher said, "Tell me everything you noticed when you washed your face this morning." I hadn't really paid any attention to washing my face, so my interview was over. So that's what we're getting at. Let's see, I once read this account of a student who asked Suzuki how he could hang on to his peaceful state of mind once he got out of sesshin. And Suzuki said, "Don't worry, it'll go away on its own." So, I mean, that's the way the practice is. I mean, your job today, like if you want to be a Zen Buddhist practitioner in this way, is to try to be with things while they're happening, and then with this kind of meticulous, sort of exquisite attention, and then to let go. So whatever's happening, you give it your attention, but you can't really force it to happen. You just keep the intention in mind, and then you return like over and over again whenever you find that you've lost your way. I mean, your minds have a mind of their own. Like, it's really, you can't control your mind, but you can make sitting a space in which this quality of attention can arise for you in a very warm-hearted way. And, sitting changes you. It's like, water in a river, polishing a stone. Over time, things start to change. Now, I want to say one more thing, which is I want to talk about the shadow side of Zen practice and the relationship between effort and relaxation. So they often say that meditation is called the razor's edge of attention, because it's asking you to pay attention in a very wholehearted way, but also it's asking you to let go at the same moment. Like if you pay attention too much, then there's too much tension or strain when you try to keep focus for too long in that way. On the other hand, if you relax too much, you could lose your focus and you could get very dull and very sleepy. So I mean, there's certainly upsides to paying close attention. Your focus is better, you concentrate on the task at hand, you have less distractions, you probably do your job more efficiently. I mean, that's really beneficial if you're doing some very detail-oriented task. And then also, anchoring yourself in the present moment, that makes you feel good. It reduces feelings of stress. So that, and then probably the quality of your work is better. And then also just paying attention to other people is, it makes your relationship deeper and more meaningful. Once I was talking to Darlene about how boring somebody was at this cocktail party, and I was going off, like it was just a private conversation, and I kept saying, it's just bored to tears. I couldn't believe this guy. And then she said, "Oh, you should just pay attention more closely. You would find it to be very interesting." Like that was her remedy for my situation. So anyway, that's the upsides. Now the downsides of paying close attention are that it's exhausting. I mean, it can be really mentally draining. It uses a lot of energy to focus that intensively on something that can make you kind of burn out. Also, just overthinking things and perfectionism. So if you could get very overly focused on very minor issues and then be so hung up that you couldn't move forward because things weren't exactly perfect. So that can be stressful. Also, just difficulty letting go. If you get overly fixated on some details, then sometimes it's very hard to let go when you need to. So that kind of focus, tunnel vision, there's not much spontaneity there. So, and then that, there's a lot to be said for, creativity and playfulness and adapting to unexpected changes. So I've definitely met some OCD Zen Buddhists before, and believe me, I didn't enjoy them, especially the ones that had power. I mean, so there's the difference between paying attention and then compulsive thinking. So, if you can't stop thinking about something, that is not healthy, and that's a sign of obsession. So it's, and also that kind of focused vision could cause you to neglect other parts of your life. So being very rigid, not having any flexibility, like losing your perspective, and then feeling really drained from something, but by paying too much attention. So like close attention can really feel energizing when it's wholesome, but obsession feels really exhausting, sort of emotionally and physically. So that's the shadow side of Zen practice, if you ask me. If it's taken to an extreme, there can be emotional suppression and sort of rigid adherence to form, and there's not much spontaneity, not much joy. So in the practice, we try to move back and forth between what's called panoramic view, which is very broad, open, like shikantaza, where your attention's like receptive to everything in your field of experience, and then being able to narrow your attention when you need to so that you can concentrate on things. You could think of it as like aperture on a camera. So, those are two, reaching, I'll say this last thing is that reaching for certain mind states in meditation is really not recommended. And as an old junkie, I have to resist that because it's very drug-like. Like if you pay so much attention to one thing, you can really get yourself into an altered state. So ideally, moving back and forth between those two modes of attention and having a lot of flexibility and awareness, to my mind, that's what makes a healthy practice. Sorry, thanks. I had more to say than I thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk and Steve. I don't have a lot to add to that, but I have been thinking about this idea of Menmitsu no Kafu being, the simple instruction for how to pay attention to what's happening beyond judgment and beyond conceptualization and being in each moment. Before I got sober and before I came to Buddhist practice, I didn't have any idea what that meant. I was nothing was clear and nothing was obvious to me. I was baffled by the world. Why is all this stuff happening to me? And when I got sober, the fog began to clear a bit. And then with the training of Buddhist practice, I began to see this world through a different lens. It's a microscopic vision compared to what I had before, which was, just get through the day. Just get through the day so I can have my drink or my drug and feel better. And now it's, okay, I feel better without the drink or the drug, but how am I going to organize my thinking? And the practice of Zen Buddhism helped really a lot with that, especially being in a monastic situation where we pay special attention to everything throughout the day. It starts with Zazen, and there's a particular way you enter the Zendo. There's a particular way you sit and you put on your rakusu. You hold your rakusu when you walk through the door, keeping it above your heart, giving it careful attention. And you put your rakusu on in a particular way, you sit in a particular way, and then you have service after that, which is, very, you become very intimate and very familiar with the chants and what those words mean and what it feels like to be part of this group, this Sangha, and what does Sangha mean. And so this careful attention to detail allows you to not only become intimate with the Dharma, with the practice, with Sangha, but with yourself in ways that I had no idea were available to me. And I was, unfamiliar with this phrase, Menmitsu no Kafu, when it was spoken of last week. So I was really looking forward to researching it a little bit. And Steve gave a really, thorough examination of the meaning of it. But I wanted to let you know about another one that I read, which was from a Zen priest who's also a clinical psychologist. His name is Seth Zui Segal. And he says, in Zen, although we do many different things, we do things in the same way, whether sitting, walking, eating, or listening, whether folding our clothes at night, placing a fork on our plate, or opening the door. We do it with a specific intention called Menmitsu no Kafu in Japanese. And his definition of that is that men means the phrase men means close, intimate, or closely woven. Mitsu means cotton fabric, so a closely woven cotton fabric. Ka means family, and fu means wind or manner. So together they express this family style of exquisite and careful and considerate and intimate, warm-hearted, continuous attention to detail, which is, not something that most people do every day in their life, but is, you have to bear in mind that you have to think about emphasizing what your actions are like in the world. What does this careful attention to detail illustrate to the world around you? And a good deal of this, monastic living involved putting on our robes, sweeping hallways, refolding cloths, assembling things, oryoki, all of the things that, were really designed to keep our attention focused together as a group, as a sangha in an intimate way. And so that's, really why we meet as sangha, so that we can become this close-knit family, this group that is giving attention to our hearts and minds in more intimate ways. I read this story about, there's a priest, Shakusho Kong, and he is at the Sonoma Mountain Zen Center. He started that. He was a disciple of Suzuki Roshi's, and he established that place in 1973, and it's still going, and it's being run now by his son, Nyozo Kwong, who succeeded him, but he's still there and he's still alive. And throughout his teaching, Kwong Roshi has emphasized that Zazen, sitting meditation, can help to empty minds and thereby let go of emotional and intellectual discrimination and prejudice. And he teaches us that this can enable us to realize the interconnectedness of all things and focus on the present in every action in every day. And looking back over his time with Suzuki Roshi, he said that he realized through all the training that he was getting through Suzuki Roshi that he was doing much more than, having him arrange flowers or take care of his oryoku bowls, but that he was actually being very careful and very considerate about rearranging his consciousness. And we take that out, this careful attention, we take this out to try to into all our actions, including the way we put our shoes at the door, or how we handle utensils in the kitchen. I worked in the kitchen at Zen Center, and one of the things that what we did there was work in silence, there were meditation breaks with bells. Every now and then we would all stop and just breathe for a moment or two. It began with bowing in, lighting incense. Everything was intentional, even right down to cutting vegetables. You cut them. There's a chart on how to cut carrots. Everything is very meticulous, and there is not the goal is not to get things done. Of course, the goal is to get things on the table, but it's also the goal is to do things with full attention to detail in a wholehearted way that, normally in the kitchen, most people weren't accustomed to doing that. And so I've tried to bring this over into my life. I love to cook, and I cook on the weekend mostly because the week is so, so busy. But when I do, I cook in silence. I remember to breathe. I remember to take a break at the time and try to be very, very grateful for this practice that has been given to us through Buddha's teachings. So it's really all that I wanted to say. And I think now what we'll do is sit in silence for a few minutes, and if Kirk will ring the bell, and then we'll discuss.